Hi everyone, welcome to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this mile a minute baby blanket. Now obviously I've made this for a little girl. At the moment it's just half the blanket, but this is exactly half, and I'm going to show you how to make these mile a minute strips and attach them using the crochet as you go method. And I'm going to just do the other half in this tutorial. So for this tutorial then, I'm using various shades of pink, ranging from light up to a darker one. So they're not all the same make, but they are all DK weight. Every one of them is quite comparable in size. The only one that's not DK was the fluffy yarn. I used pink, but that I made 2 strips with the pink, and it was just enough to make 2. There was none left over at all. I played a little bit of yarn chicken and won with this. There was nothing left, so I don't have any more of that one, but this is what I used. It's called Peter Pan Precious Chunky, and it is classed as a chunky, but sorry about that. Although it's classed as a chunky, the strip is exactly the same size, and it's only really classed as a chunky because of the weight, you know, the thickness with all of the fur. But it's not a ridiculously thick yarn, and so it fitted in quite well. You don't have to have a fluffy part to it, but I just fancied having one. But I've made several other strips and ready to attach and border. So I'm going to show you with this colour how I'm going to do the strips. Now I'm using this tulip rose crochet hook, which is 4.5mm. I've got a pair of scissors and some darning needles and a drink, which is an optional extra. And you'll need some stitch markers. Now I've got 4. That's all I need for this particular tutorial, because each one of these strips is 44 of these shells, for want of a better word. They're a set of 3 treble crochet, which is a UK term, or double crochet in the US, with 1 chain and another 3. So each one of these, it's 44, but that does not include the bottom part, which is different. So I'm going to pause the video for a second. Oh yes, by the way, I've also put this robin paint box. I've got quite a lot of this left over, and I wanted a variegated yarn to pop in, and I tried several, but I didn't kind of like the way that the colours were spaced out. But this one's spaced lovely, so I just thought it would also inject a bit of brightness and colours. But there's lots and lots of pinks in this, so it worked just well. I'm not sure if you can get hold of Robin Paintbox anymore. I think since lockdown and the coronavirus, Robin has had problems and possibly ceased trading, but any variegated yarn that you have will do. You don't have to have any variegated at all. You can have just solid colours. So if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there's new videos. But I'm just going to pause the video now, clear this away, and get cracking showing you how to do this. Right, so once you've got your chosen colours, now if you've wanted to, you could make this in another weight of yarn. You could make this in 4 weight. I've chosen 3 because I've got quite a lot of 3 weight yarn. But if you wanted to make it with 4 weight, you just need to adjust the crochet hook size that you're using. And if you keep to the same amount of segments, then you will just get a slightly larger blanket. So what we're going to do is start with a slip knot, and you can make that however you normally would. And once you have, we're going to chain 7. Now the middle chain I always do slightly tighter than the others, because otherwise it can make quite a large hole. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through once, yarn over, pull through twice, yarn over and pull through 3 times. So I have 3 chain. Now this one I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to make it a little smaller, and I'm holding on to it, and I'm going to do another 3. So now I have 7. Now in this one here I'm going to do a UK treble crochet, which in the US is a double crochet, and to do that I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to put my hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I have 3 on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2 of them, yarn over and pull through the other 2. So now I have my chain, which count as my first treble crochet, and this one which counts as another. So I'm going to chain 1. This is making one of the ends, and as I said, it's going to be different to the rest of it. So now I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go back into that same stitch, and I'm going to do another 2 of those UK trebles or US doubles. And as you can see, working in this quite a bit does make that hole a little bit bigger, which is why I do that tighter in the first place. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to do another set of 2. In the same space, and chain 1. Now I'm going to do 1 more in there. Now just as with the other side, our chain counted as our first one, these chain count as our last. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see more clearly. I'm going to slip stitch into that very first one. Move this tail out of the way because it's confusing. And yarn over and slip stitch in. So now we have 4 sets of 2 separated by these chains. And now I'm going to just ignore that tail, which is annoying. I normally work them in, but that would just confuse you. I'm just going to zoom out because it's a little bit difficult to show you so close. So now we're going to chain 2, because if I get one of my strips, not the fluffy one obviously, now we're going to be working on these segments. So we have got to the end, actually the other end, doesn't matter which one I show you, I know, but this is the one we started with, and I've worked over my tail. So this was my first one. So now I've done these 2 chain here, and I'm going to be working in the other side. So this is the ones we've just done. I've chained 2, and we're going to work in the opposite side. So that's what I've done now. So I'm going to turn it so that it's aimed downwards. And remember that tail, just got to get rid of that. So now I'm going to chain, sorry, I've done my chain 2. I'm going to do 3, sorry, I'll get this right in a minute. I'm going to do 3 UK trebles or US doubles in that space. Exactly the same as I did just now. 1. My second. And there's the third. And I'm going to chain 1. Pull that over slightly. See what I mean about this hole gets bigger? That's why I do it smaller, so that when it gets bigger it's not huge. So now I'm going to do 3 more, which is the other side of the segment. And now, just as we did 2 chain here to get up to that height, we need to do a treble into this very first stitch there, at the top of our chains, which counts as our stitch. So if I make that larger and show you exactly what we've got. So it doesn't look like a post at the moment, it just looks a little bit like a strange circle. But this is the bottom part. We've got 2 chain, which is our first post, and this treble here acts as our second post, and we've got our 3 chain 1 and our 3. Now we're going to repeat that until we've got 44 of these segments. So it's just the same as before. Chain 2, turn it. Now in this chain space between our segment, we're going to do exactly the same as we just did before, where we have 3, 1 chain and another 3. There's my chain, 3 more. If I go too fast, then just by all means pause it and catch up. But I feel whenever I show anyone, it's best to watch one first. So now here we are, this is our post, and this is our first of our trebles. So we're going to do another one in there, in that stitch, not in the chain. So we're continuing this post. So if you can imagine that these are like the tall stitches at the end, just making our posts either side, and then our segments in between. So now we've got to the end, we're going to chain 2 again, turn it round and work into this center one by doing exactly the same as before. There's our 3, 1 chain, 3 more. Anytime I'm ahead of you, just pause it and catch up with me. Just need to pull out a bit more yarn. So now here we are again at the end. There's our 2 chain. This is our last stitch, which would have been the first one on that round. So we're going to go in there and do 1 UK treble, US double, all on its own. And that is how we're going to carry on. You can either turn and do your chain, or chain and then turn. It makes no difference. As long as you're doing your stitches, you've got 3, the 1 chain, and that's where you're putting them. And we just continue like that until our strip is long enough. And for this particular blanket, I've done, as I say, 44 of these segments. So with the 2 ends, that's 46, but the ends obviously are different. And then I'm going to go into that stitch there, not the chain, and do 1 more stitch, 2 chain, and turn. And we're going to carry on like that. Just need to pull out some more yarn. I'll do a few more with you and get you started. And now I'm going to go back in there and do my next segment. But just remember that the very first one we did was 4 lots of 2, and the first and the last were the chains that we'd already done, and you separate them by 1 chain. Just keep turning and going into that center. That's it. Sorry if I'm going a little faster. There we are. And we just keep doing the same thing. It can be a little monotonous, but it's quite effective. Okay, then you can just see there's our 3 into the last one. So what I've done in the past, because it's hard to count, what I'll do is I ignore, turn it out the right way, I ignore that bit, and then I will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I place in a stitch marker as I'm going. So once I've done 10, I put in a stitch marker, and then I'll do, from there I can count another 10 as I'm going, obviously. Place another stitch marker, do the same, so that when you come to look at it and you think, how many have I done? You haven't got to keep counting. You can say there's 10, 20, 30, 40, and then you know you need 4 more before you get to the end. So that's what the stitch markers are for, just to help you as you go along. When you've got 10, you can pop in a stitch marker. So we'll do a few more, although I think you've seen by now how you carry on, just doing this all the way along. All the way to the end, until you've done 44. Or if you want to make this longer, you decide how many you want to do. But as long as you start and end with the right side. So this is the back, obviously, because this is uneven. So when you start and finish, they'll both be this way round. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back to you when I've done my 44 and show you what we do when we get to the end of the row. Okay, so I've now got, apart from my end, I have 44 of these segments, and every 10 that I made, I popped in a stitch marker, so I knew when I got to this one, all I needed was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I was finished my 44. So now I need to make my opposite end. Just going to untangle my yarn a little bit. So now what we do is we turn our work, and we'll do our 2 chain as normal, and then into this one here we're going to do the exact same as we did on the opposite end. So we're going to do 2 of our UK treble or US doubles into that center, 1 chain, then another 2, and then another chain, and then another 2, all into this center, one more chain. So we have 4 altogether, 4 lots of 2, so we need 2 more in there. And now we need to make this post the other side, just the same as we have been all the way along, by doing our last stitch into there. And now we've completed our strip. So all we have to do now is cut off a nice long tail and end off. And I usually end off by doing 1 chain, cinching it right down low and pulling it through. And it doesn't matter if it sticks out a little bit like this, because that will get completely covered up when we go around it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how we go around. I'll just pick up my yarn. How we go around each segment. So the first one, we will go round the whole thing. So at this point you will make however many of these strips that you want. Now for me, on this blanket, I'm going to do exactly the same again. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I will have another 5 strips, and I'm going to do 2 of each colour. So now we get our white yarn. Just going to pull that out. Okay, Just get enough of my white. And I'm going to take out these stitch markers because we don't need them now. That was just so that we got the right amount. There we go. And I always start at this end because I don't want to have two to sew in at this end. So I always start at this end. So I can get my crochet hook and I start this side because this is the right side. Remember, both of our ends will face this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore all of this end. So there's the 4 lots of 2. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start. Actually, it is the one where I ended off. Never mind, doesn't matter. I'll sew both in, doesn't matter. So I need all of my stitches along this edge. Oh well, I've got 2. I've got 2 joins. That's strange. Never mind. It completely threw me. So I'm going to start here because there's my 2, my 2, my 2, and my 2. So this one after the post along this way, after my 4 lots of 2. I'm going to join my white into that post, into the space, not join it to the post. So I'm going to pull that through. Now with my, just ignore this tail, but with my working yarn and my tail, I'm just going to do 1 chain. Then I'm going to drop that and I'm going to do another chain. So now I'm going to do in each of these segments all the way along, all of these, now we're working into the sides of our segments, I'm going to do 3. So those 2 chains count as the first one, that's the second, and that'll be the third. Push them together because that one looked a little different. So I'm going to pop them down there out of the way because otherwise it will get confusing. So now you can see all of the spaces in between our segments, and that's where we're going to do our groups of 3. Move those out the way, so not in here but in this big space. So we're just going to do 3 in there, and into the next one, 3 in there. And then into the next one. So basically it's past the segment. Don't get confused with where the segment actually kind of joins. We're just going to do 3 in each one of these all the way along, all the way to the end. But with this one we are going to go all the way around. So just make sure that, as I said, you're not going into this space here, which is part of the segment. You're only going into these large spaces and you're doing your sets of 3 just like this. So I'm going to pause it and I'm going to go all the way along, and I shall catch up with you once again when we get to the end. Right, now I realised that I could have done this in 2 parts. The actual strips in part 1 and the border to them and the join in part 2, and I didn't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to timestamp. So if you want to, you'll be watching this, but if you wanted to revisit it and see how to put this first one on and then how to put the joining ones on, the timestamps will be in the description box. So we've got to the end and we're back around the edge. So this one here, as you can see, is part of a segment, so we'll put our 3 in there as usual. I just wanted to show you the difference. So now we're at the edge. You can see there's our 2 and another 2 and another 2 and our last 2. So this is going to square this edge off. So we're going to put 3 into this space. Some miler minutes, I just need to pull out some yarn. Some miler minutes, they don't have a squared off edge, they have a circular or a pointed, but I wanted this one as a baby blanket with a border to have a squared edge. So now I'm going to chain 1 and do 3 more in that same space to form a corner. Pull it aside if you have to, just to make a space. So we've made our corner, and now after this 2 here, we're going to put 3, which will form our edge to our strip. So now you can see it squaring it off, and in this next one, after this 2, we're going to do another corner. So we're going to put 3, chain 1, and 3 more in the same space. Again, if you have to pull it along slightly, then that's fine. And then we're back to normal with our 3 in this space. I'll work over that tail a little bit there. So that's why I said it doesn't matter if that end looks a little odd, because you're just going to cover it up anyway. So if I pull that out, then I'll show you that that has now squared off the edge of each of the strips, and so when you join them it will form a flat edge along the top of the blanket. So now we're going to do exactly the same by going into each one of these segments all the way along until we get to this end. So exactly the same as we just have. I'll pause the video and I'll meet you when you get to the bottom. They're exactly the same just by going into, this is just a tail, ignore that, just by going into these between the segments with 3. Now we've reached all the way to the end, and all that's left is this part, and as you can see there's the 2, 4, 6, 8 but separated by the chain. So in this first one again is a corner because we want to square that off. So we're going to do 3, 1 chain and another 3 in the same space. And then in the middle one, middle gap, we're just putting 3. Exactly the same as the other end. And in this next one, the corner. And then all we have to do is slip stitch into that first stitch to end off. Find the scissors. I always leave a nice long tail for sewing in, and then just going to do 1 chain, cinch it down and pull it through. So now we've got 2 squared off ends. So that's how we do the first one. So this is the right way around, and as you can see it's nice and square. So what I do is I will do half again, finish one halfway round, and then I will crochet them together. Now if you didn't want to do that, you could just make them all like this, but it is an awful lot of sewing together all the way along the edges. Plus it's a little bit vulnerable. I don't know if you've ever had a seam that you've sewed come undone on you, but it can be a little bit vulnerable. If you've crocheted it together, I don't think it's going anywhere. So I'm going to show you how to do that by using another another one of these. So again, we are going to start in exactly the same space. Just need to get my white. I'll use the other end, obviously, because I've got that join. So we're going to join it in exactly the same space. There is the 4 of the end, so I'm going to join it in this one here, the first of the segments, in exactly the same way. Drop that one, do my chain, and then I'm going to do my first segment by doing another 2 stitches, and I'm going to go all the way to the end, exactly the same as I did before. So I'm going to pause the video because you've seen this part before. I'm going to do 3 in each of these spaces between the segments all the way to the end, and I'll catch up with you once I've done that. Okay, so I've made it to the end, just pulling out some yarn, and I've got one more segment to do before I get to my pairs. So there's one more group of 3 to do in that one there, and now I'm back to the corners, but it's slightly different this time. I'm going to do the first one as normal, so I'm going to just do this with 3 and 1 chain and 3. For any time I go ahead of you, just pause it and catch up. And then in this one here, which is the center one, I'm going to do my 3 just as normal. And now this is where it changes. This is my next corner. I'm going to do 3 and 1 chain, and that's where I'm going to finish it for now. And I'm just going to lay that there like that. Make sure I've got enough yarn out, and I'm going to bring in my finished one, which is over here, and I'm making sure that it is right side up. Let's move the scissors out of the way. So we're now joining this at the corner so that it will sit like that. So what we do is we get to the center of our corner and we're going to aim the hook down, and then underneath here we're just going to hook that yarn and bring it through. Doesn't matter, it's all baggy, just pull it tight. Not too tight, obviously. The tighter you pull it, obviously it won't look natural. So then you slip stitch that through, and now we're going to complete our corner by doing 3 more in there. It's a little harder to hold when you're sitting down. Maybe you can do it at a table like this, but I sit on the settee on the sofa, and I find it much easier to do this without holding it like this. So now you just look, you've gone in at the corner, your next segment's there, you pop your hook through and you hook your yarn, bring it up, and then slip stitch it through. So now we go into our next segment. Ignore that tail, I'm just going to work over it and do our 3 as usual. And then you've joined this one, so your next one is here. You're going to aim your hook down, scoop your yarn back up without letting these be too baggy, and pulling through. And then I'm just going to drop that and just do my 3 into my next segment. I think I'm working over the tail there, doesn't matter, I can always pull it out and secure it properly. And then you go to the next one. You can see where you've joined. Aim your hook in, loop your yarn and pull it through, and then just pull it like a slip stitch through that one, and then you're joining as you go. It looks a little bulky for now, but it does flatten out, and then you just keep going to your next segment to do your 3. Then you look along just as you've been doing, pop your hook down, loop that yarn up, and then pull it through for a slip stitch. Obviously not too tight, otherwise it will pucker and then not lay naturally flat. Not too loose, or it will make a yarn bump, which you don't want. So you just want the tension nice and natural, as your tension has been all the way through. Pop it in, loop it up, slip stitch it through, and then straight into the next segment. So it's not difficult, it's just fiddly with working the two together. If it's not for you, then you can sew them, but sewing them, as I said, is very tedious and time consuming, and it is well worth learning this little extra skill. So it's ever so easy once you get going. It's just the natural way to do it, and you can join other things, not just this. And then again, next one along, aim it down and loop it up. I think there is another way where you take your yarn out of your hook and then put your hook in and pull it through, but that takes longer, and this looks just as good to me. So I prefer doing it this way. You don't lose your stitch, it doesn't come unravelled. You've got your hook in at all times. Next one along and lip it up. So as I said earlier, I did these really parts 1 and 2 together, but obviously I know that it takes time to make your strips, and so I will timestamp all these things for you to just find them easily when you need to. If you're holding on to this one, you're not going to have it too loose. And just keep going. Exactly the same way, all the way along. So I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to carry on, joining as I go like that, until I get to the end, and I will show you what we do when we get to the bottom. But once you've done it, it will flatten out nicely. So I'm going to pause it now and catch up with you at the end of this strip. Okay, so I've made it all the way to the end, and I've done my 3 in my last segment before my corner. So just as we joined the corner at that end, we're going to do exactly the same at this end. So we are going to, whoops a daisy, that's right, and we're going into there. Sorry about that, I noticed that I'd gone wrong. I'd missed a segment out, and I know exactly what happened. My cat was playing with my yarn ball, and as I was trying to scush her away without knocking everything over, I managed to go in the wrong segment. So I put that right. So now, as I said, we are back at the corner. So this here, this is our last segment, and we've got 2 and 4 and 6 and 8. So this is back where we should be. So once we've attached our last segment, we'll go into this one as normal and do our first 3. I wondered what on earth I'd done wrong then, because I'd counted them all. But note to self, put the cat away. So now where we go is into the center of our corner, and then loop our yarn up and pull it through and do our slip stitch, And now we finish off our corner by going in the same one and doing our 3. Sorry, I deviated from the path then. I moved it. So now we've done our corner. I'm going to show you that one more time, just in case I wasn't in the dead center, and I don't want anything to go wrong with that. So we've finished our last segments, and we'll do our 3 in our first part. So there's our doubles. There's 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and 2 there. So we'll do 3. Why am I? It's tending to travel. Let's go back. There we are. So yeah, we're going to do, I'll do it one more time with you, just because that was a bit confusing. So that's where we left off. And these are our ends. We've got these 4 pairs. And so the first one is our first corner. So we'll do our first 3 in there. I made sure the cat isn't here. She's hiding under the bed now. And so we're going to put our hook dead center into the corner. There's our first 3, 1 chain, first 3. So we're just going to pop our hook in. Now it doesn't matter if you do your chain before or after your join. So I'm going to do it after. And then I'm going to put my 3 into the same spot to finish that corner off. And then in that middle one, it's just 3. And then this one is a full corner, just the same as before. Pop it across if you have to. And then we just join it by slip stitching into that first stitch, which is the 2 chain, and then we'd end off. And then we have joined both ends of our blanket. And that's, I'm sorry it got a little confusing there at the end, but I really thought that I'd done something wrong there, and I couldn't figure out, because I knew I'd counted them and put my stitch markers in, and it was all all the right amount. And but when I looked, I'd managed to, and it's easily done. It's easily done. Instead of putting my hook through and picking up, I went into the next one, so it bunched up 2 together like that. Once I figured out what I'd done, it was only about here that I managed to go back quite easy and put it right. But that's how we do both ends of our joining as we go. We just loop at the corner there. So now all you need to do is make your strips, edge your first one completely round, and then all the subsequent ones we start at the same spot, go all the way around to this point, and then join at the corner and go all the way back. So simple, really. I will put in I'll put in some timestamps for all those things, and I'll list them in the description box. So that's the end of this particular video. I'm going to leave you then to make your blanket. You can choose whichever colours that you want. I know you won't probably get the same yarn as me in any case, but these are the colours that I've been making mine with, and the fluffy one which run out. So there it is. But you don't have to include a fluffy one if you don't want to. It is quite difficult to see where you're stitching. I did it by feel and just by experience, really knowing where to put it. But obviously this kind of yarn is extremely extremely forgiving if you make a mistake. Would you see it? So as long as you can feel where you put your segments, it's quite easy to get into there. It's quite easy. You can feel them and pop them in, and it's but I liked to put a fluffy one in. You don't have to, but as I said, the one I used was I can't find the yarn band now. I had it here just now. It's gone. Must have fallen on the floor or something. But it was this. I think I might be a little zoomed. There we are. It was just a pink version of this one. But you can use any yarns, any weight of yarn. Just adjust your hook accordingly. And whatever colours you want to use. You can use all solid colours. You can use more variegated. You can use solid colours on your strip and variegated around the outside, or variegated with solid around the outside. I've done actually combinations of all of those, but you can use one of each colour and carry on just making it like an ombre effect. The choice is yours. It's possibilities are endless. So I'm going to leave it there, and I will show you how I've done my border in another video. So thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you on the next one. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this puff stitch mile a minute. Now this particular one that you're looking at is a scarf for a 5-year-old. So I'm going to do a separate tutorial for that, because otherwise you might not get to see the stitch if you didn't want to make a scarf for a 5-year-old. So I'm going to do how to do the puff stitch mile a minute in this tutorial, and then I'll do a separate tutorial for the scarf. But I like to make my puff stitches quite puffy, quite meaty. And I've not seen anyone join it this way. I have seen other joins. It's not to say that there aren't, but I haven't seen them. So just let me tell you what yarn I've used. I'm using a DK weight, which is a 3-weight yarn. And the yarn that I've used for this project were Signet, I don't know if that's Pato or Pato, but Signet Pato. This was an everyday DK and this was a baby DK, but they feel identical. There's nothing to tell them apart at all. If you're interested in this yarn, the shade is 985 and it's called Mauve. And this one is 782 Lilac. They go really nicely together and are perfect for a little girl's scarf. Well, they're actually perfect for anything because they're lovely and soft. You could use them for a baby, you could use them for adults, you could use them for anything you want, because they are really, really nice yarns. So I'm using a 5mm crochet hook, a Dardy needle and the usual pair of scissors. So I'm going to clear all this bits and pieces away and come back and show you how to do this. But in the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when the new videos pop up. So just bear with me for a second while I get this all cleared away. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make a slip knot, and you can do that however you normally would make your slip knots. I usually do mine like that. So we need to make a total of 8 chain, and we need to make it quite loosely. So that not really baggy, but just not tight. So that's nice and simple. Okay. So on all my other mile a minutes, you'll notice that if you've watched them, I use 7 chain, but this one I'm going to use 8 for a reason. But we need to count back from this end, from the tail end. 1, 2, 3. We're going to go into the 4th one, and we're going to yarn over, go into that chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, but we're going to elongate it. We're going to yarn over, go back in and pull up a loop again and elongate it. The first one's always the hardest to do that with, because you're pulling against a chain, but we're going to do that a total of 5 times. And I know that's quite a lot, but I like to make mine quite puffy. So that's 2, 3, 4, see it gets a little tighter, 5. Now that gives us a fair amount of loops on our hook. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's a lot of hooks, loops, not hooks. We've only got the one hook. A lot of loops. And we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through all of those, and we're going to make 2 chain. And then we're just going to go in that same space again and do exactly the same thing all over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and yarn over, pull through all of them, and this time 1 chain. And now in our very first chain next to our tail, we're going to do a UK treble crochet, which is a US double. So that's yarn over into that chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So it looks a little like that right now. And now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. We're going to be working vertically rather than in a horizontal way. So this is our repeat now for every single row. We're going to yarn over and do our first puff stitch with 5 loops, 5 times that we go in, giving us 11 loops, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Yarn over, pull through all of those loops, chain 2 because we're making the space in between our puff stitches, yarn over, again go back in and do the other side. That's our 5th time, yarn over, pull through all of them, 1 chain. Now we need to go in to the chain that you can see right next to our puff stitch there. Now we're making our puffs and our posts. So we've got posts either end, in between we have our puff stitch shells, for want of a better word. We're just going to keep doing that. And 2 chain between them, remember. And there's our last one. 1 chain, and then into the chain next to our puff stitch. So you can see it's starting to make this little ladder of puff stitches. Now for my project that I made, the scarf for instance, I had 62 of these. So really all you need to do is whatever you're making, just keep going with this until you've reached the desired length. Now with that scarf, I also put tassels on the end of it. So just bear in mind the overall length of your project, what you're going to make at the end, whether you're going to do a dangly border or whether you're making a blanket and you're just doing a neat border. So take that into consideration and do however many of these little segments as you like. So just keep going with this. 2 chain, turn our work, and then our 2 puff stitches, going in 5 times, giving us 11 loops on the hook. I keep wanting to say hooks on the loop, but I won't. Then 2 in between, pull it over if you need to, do another one. It's easy to get your hook through. If you pull them up high enough, you will get it in. And then our last stitch. And that's what it's looking like. And as it works on, it does pull out a little bit, but that's fine. So just keep going until you've reached your desired length. Now I'm going to do a few more. I'd say another 4, so it will give us 8. all together. And then I'm going to pause it, do those 4, and I'll come back to you and show you what we do next. Okay, so I have a small swatch. I'm not going to make a really long one. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You want an even number. That way the front is always the front. Not that this really looks much different from the back. So we're going to end off and we're going to yarn over and pull up a chain, cinch it right down and pull it out, and that ends off nicely. Now, should you want to, you can sew your ends in now, which might be easier when you're going on to the next stages. So what I want you to do for the purposes of this swatch, I'm just going to make another one that's identical. So if you're making your lengths longer, then I need you to make as many of those lengths as you need to complete your project before you go on to the next stage. But for this purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to make another one of these exactly the same, with 8 segments. So I'm going to pause it while I do that, and from your point of view, you will need to make up however many lengths you need for your project. Okay, so here we are. I've got my 2 identical strips, and I'm going to bring in my next colour yarn. And so this is going to be where the corners are, and this will be the side. So I'm going to start here on this one next to the corner. And so I'm going to bring in my new colour, and look at that, as a hair. That just goes to show that, like everybody else, I crochet in a part of myself to just about everything, even though my hair's in a ponytail. It's a special skill. Now, normally I don't join my yarn like this, but I'm going to this time because, well, I feel like it for a start, and it just ties it in nicely, and I don't really want my join to be too bulky. So I'm going to insert my hook and bring that yarn through, and I'm just going to make 1 chain only, because I don't really want a post getting in the way, and this works up quite nicely anyway. So I'm going to do a puff stitch, just 1 in this space. So I'm going to do my 5. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to pull through all, and I'm going to do 1 chain, and then I'm going to go straight into the next one, which is here, and do that again. Now you can work over your tail if you want to. You can, if you prefer to sew them in like I just did, but I'm going to work over this one and see if it works out okay. If not, you can easily pull it out. There we go. 1 chain, and do another one in the next space. It's in these posts that you've made at the end that you're doing that. Nice and easy. Nothing we haven't already done, but we're just putting 1 in instead of our doubles, and 1 chain in the middle, and that's how it's looking. Just like that, and we're nearly at the end, so I'll show you what we do when we get to our corner. We're almost there. This is our last single. If I've gone ahead of you, just pause it and catch up with me. Okay, so now we're at our corner, and there we are. You can see there's going to be the corner. There's the bit in the middle where we join. You know, first of all, we did our very first puff, and there's the other corner. So in here, we're going to do a double, just as before. I need to pull some yarn out. I'll do that in a sec. Well, perhaps I'll do it now. It's getting a bit tight. Just bear with me a second. If you need a stash busting project, then this is the one. It's not a yarn eater as such, but it will go through your stash quite nicely. And pull through all of them. And 2 chain, because we're at the corner. Pull it over slightly if you have to, and do the next one in there. And after this one, we're just going to do the 1 chain, and then in the center of our segment there, we're going to do 1. With 1 chain, and then we're going to complete another corner in here. Two chain at our corner, and then another one. I have pulled out enough yarn, I think. One chain. Now it does feel rather tight, but it will pull out. If you're a very tight crocheter and it doesn't pull out, you can always put an extra chain in the corner, but they will pull out. So I'm going to carry on all the way to this corner, doing 1 in each of our posts, the corresponding side to this one. So we're just going to do 1 all the way along here. I'll pause it and I'll catch up with you when we get back to our corner again. Okay, so we're back at our end. So we've got the corner in between and this corner to do. Just the same as the previous one. We're going to do, I think that was 4. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, you can always tell you need to have the 11 on your hook. That's always a good way to tell. And we're going to just pull that over slightly and do another one in this corner. And then 1 in that part between our 2. And our last corner. Two chain between. One chain. And this is where I said to you before, you didn't want this 1 chain to clutter up your design. And this elongated V at the top here is where we're going to slip stitch into. Just, that's the top of our stitch. So we're going to slip stitch into there, and we're going to break off our yarn. And again, just like before, 1 chain, cinch it down and pull it through. So now we've got 1 side complete. And it's kind of pulling, but it will pull out once you start putting them together, and that's what it looks like. So we're going to get the next one, and again we're going to not start at the corner, we're going to start here in the next one along. So we're going to join that in exactly the same way. Just I'm going to tie it off because I don't want a bulky join, as I said before, and pull out my hook in and pull up a loop, 1 chain, and then I'm just going to do my puff stitches all the way along this edge. Just a second. Sorry, I had a wasp come in. I opened the window and the wasp came in, and you know, you think they'd all be gone by now, but as it's cold outside, he decided he wanted to come in. A wasp, really? Anyway, so we're just going to do one in each along here, and what I want to do, I'm going to pause it, but I want you to go all the way along and do a corner here, and then one in this end, and then stop, and I will come back and show you what to do next. Okay, so here we are at the corner. So our first half of this corner is going to be exactly the same. Okay, and we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to grab the completed one, and we're going to look a bit, we want it to be the same way up, which I believe we are. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the corner that corresponds, we're going to insert our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through and pull through. So we've joined it. Actually, I've done that slightly wrong. I'm going to do one chain. I'm slightly wrong there, I do apologise, but go back. So it's one chain between our corner. We're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull up and complete that with a slip stitch. We're going to do one more chain, and we're going to do the other half of our corner exactly as before. So we're joining as we go. Pull it through, one chain. So now, if it helps to lay them side by side, don't want to lose my stitch, you can work like this. It's difficult when you're on camera to work like this. So what we need to do now, we've been into the corner. I'll zoom in if I can, there you are. So we've joined at this corner, and we've done our first puff along this. We've finished that. We're going to join to, we've done our second part of the corner, that's what I'm trying to say. Insert the hook, yarn over and pull it through and make a slip stitch. And now we're going to go into the next piece on our side. It's really difficult to work like this, but I'll try my best. Oh, I'm very zoomed, aren't I? We're not going off camera. Pull it through, just as before. It's really hard because I'm not holding it right. And do our chain. Go back and look for our next one. We've joined here already. We're going to go through into there, pull up our yarn, join it with a slip stitch, and then go into our next segment. So that's what we're doing. We're going all the way along. We're making our, we can hold it like this if we want to. We're going into the next one and making our puff stitch. Just as normal. A bit tight now. Do our chain, and then we can find our next one to join. Obviously don't get the hook in the way. In there, yarn over and pull it through and slip stitch to the loop that's on the hook, and then we're going to go into the next one. I'm going to unzoom just in case it's making me go off camera when I'm doing this. I'm going to pick it up again now because it's hard to do those laying down. 1, 5. Okay, pull them through. If it helps to just lay it flat to see where you've got to go into next. When you're holding it yourself, it's quite easy to see. We're going to put our hook in, yarn over, pull it through, complete the slip stitch, and do our next one. Hold it if you want to hold it up. This is what I meant when I said it will pull it out. When you're working, it does pull it out, so it makes it work out. So you've been into this one, we're going into that one next. Going to yarn over, pull it through, complete our slip stitch, and then with this one go into our next one. It looks harder than it is. Once you get in the swing, honestly, it's really simple. And you'll be holding it the way you like to hold it, not sticking it in front of a camera like I am. Okay, so then we've been into this one, we need to go into that one. Okay, complete the slip stitch, and we're more or less at the end. Got a yarn catching on my fingernail. Isn't that really annoying when that happens? Okay, so this is where we hope and pray it works out. A couple of times I've done mile minutes in the past and I've got all the way to the end and I've got the wrong amount of segments, but of course I've done 8, so it's got to work out, hasn't it? So with this is the corner again now. We're back at the corner, so we're going to do our first half of our corner. I'm going to pull through and we're going to do 1 chain, which is where I went wrong before. Now this is our corner. We're going to insert the hook, pull up the loop and complete the slip stitch, do a chain, and we're going to finish our corner. And then we're going to do 1 in this end. And we're going to do our corner. Two chain. And the last bit of our corner. One chain, and then we're looking for the elongated V that you can see there. I'm going to slip stitch into that elongated V, and we're going to cut our yarn and end off like with the chain, cinch it down and pull it through. So now we just need to like tease it into shape, and see what I mean about this edge. It's now lovely and flat. It's been pulled out, that's fine. So as we go around, this will pull out with all of the other rows that we're doing, if not with our border. So that's how we do the puff stitch mile a minute. I hope you like that. It's pretty cool, isn't it? I like it a lot. I think I'm going to be making quite a few things with that. So this is as wide really as I made my swatch, well my scarf should I say, that I've shown you. So I really don't have anything else that's made to show you. But that's how I've done it. You can make as many of these strips as you need, so it becomes as wide as you need and as long as you need. So I hope you've enjoyed that. You can also substitute it for 4 weight yarn, 5 weight yarn, anything you want, as long as you use the corresponding crochet hook size. And I always recommend going up a size hook. So I would normally use a 4.5 with my DK weight yarn, my 3 weight, but I've used a 5 because I wanted those puff stitches to be nice and chunky. So if you're using your usual weight yarn and your usual hook, I just go up a hook size and you'll get better results. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye for now. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this unusual mile a minute. It's not the traditional granny stitch. It is a little bit more difficult, I'd say, but only that the beginning and end part of each strip is a little on the confusing side. The stitches themselves are not difficult, so I would urge you to have a go at it. This is the border that I've done this time, and well, it works up really quickly. So I'm just going to move this out the way. So I'm going to pause the video. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. I'm just going to pause it, clear this out the way, and I'll be back with you. Okay, so for the blanket that I just showed you, this pink one here, this pink and white one, I used Feels Like Butter, which is a 4 weight and incredibly soft. I used this colour, which is obviously white, and then I used a pink colour, which I'm not sure if this is the yarn band for. No, this is a white yarn band. I have none left, unfortunately, and I don't know what yarn band where that went. So it's just, I used a pink and a white, just 2 colours. You can make it multicoloured, or you can use variegated. I did also make a swatch, I just moved that out the way, with a DK 3 weight to show you. And for the swatch, I will, when we get to the border, I will put the border on this particular blanket, this swatch, so that 'cause it's nice and made already, and so I haven't got to make a whole blanket to show you the border. But this was made with a DK weight yarn, just any DK, as long as they're kind of matching in the size. But if you wanted to, you could do this part in a variegated and this part solid. You could make them all different colours, or you could do them where this part is the variegated. I've seen all of those on the traditional mile a minute, and they all look really effective. So I'm going to put this one as well to one side for now. To make it with a 3 weight, all you need to do is drop the hook size to around 4 to 4.5, depending on the actual yarn you're using, and do a few more segments as you go along. Now I will explain that a little bit more as we get to that point, but for this tutorial you're going to need some stitch markers. They're quite essential, pair of scissors and darning needle, and a 5mm crochet hook. And for this tutorial I'm going to just use another 4 weight yarn, which is in the UK called Aran, and this is a paint box Simply Aran. I do have some white somewhere, but I couldn't find it, so I'm going to use this Stylecraft Special Aran. They are virtually the same in their thickness, so because sometimes even though you'll buy a 3 weight or a 4 weight, they will quite often not be the same. So I'm going to use those, and I'm just going to clear all these bits and pieces out the way so that we've got a clear deck, and I will get started. Okay, so I've made a little pile of my stitch markers so that I don't have the big box on the table, and I'm going to start with this really beautiful colour. If you wanted to know what this one is, just finding it on the yarn band. As I said, it is Paint Box Simply Aran, and the number is 242. It is a really beautiful colour. Just pop that over there. Find the end. And just pull some yarn out while I'm off the camera smidgen. So, okay. Now this, as I said before, the start and the end can be a little bit confusing, and so I'm going to show you how I overcome that little bit of confusion for the start and end. So you just make a slip knot. You do that any way that you normally would, and we're going to chain 7. So that's yarn over and pull through, and we're going to do that 7 times. Okay, so we've got 7 chain on our hook. So we're going to go into the center chain. So we're going to go into the 4th one from each end. So it doesn't matter which end you count from. And we're going to do a UK treble or a US double crochet into that chain. Now this chain is going to have quite a bit of work into it, so it will become quite loose. The hole will become fairly pronounced. Now if you didn't like that, you could always put a little stitch in that at the end, but I don't mind it. So I'm going to chain 1. So those chains here and my 1 stitch, my UK treble or US double, that now counts as 2 stitches. So back in that same space, I'm going to do another 2. And then chain 1. Okay, so we've got 2 lots of 2. Now we're going to do 2 more. Oops, we need to take the yarn with us. Although I pulled the yarn out, it's not flowing freely, so we'll have to work that out. There we go. So there's our second one. So now we've got 3 lots of 2. I'm going to chain 1, and to mirror this one that we started with, I'm going to do 1 more in that space, and now I'm going to join it to these last 3 chains. I'm going to just go into the last one and slip stitch. So now we have 4 lots of 2 stitches including our chains, and that's what our bottom looks like. As you can see, this has got quite big, and like I said, if you didn't like it, at the end when you're just getting rid of your ends, you could just go through there and pull it a little tighter if you didn't want that to look like that, but I don't really mind it. So I'm just going to let that that tail just drop for now. I usually work mine in, but I don't want to get anyone confused. So I'm going to chain 2. We're now making the sides. So this is now the bottom of our work, and we're going to work from this way from now on. So in this space here, which obviously has already become quite large, we are going to do a UK treble or US double crochet, 1 chain and another one. So we've made a V stitch. This is where it gets a little confusing with what you're looking at. Now we're going to do another V stitch. We're not going to do anything in between. We're just going to do 1 UK treble, 1 chain and another. So we've got 2 V stitches in that center, and now we're going to join our work to this chain here at the end by doing 1 more UK treble or US double crochet. So now this is why it looks confusing, because it looks round although it's not, and we've got two V stitches and 2 ends. So what I do is I put a stitch marker in there and into the where we've just done our stitch, and now you know that that is your end stitch. And when I get to the other end, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So we now chain 2 and we turn, and we're going this way round. So we're going back into our 2 V's. These are the 2 V stitches we've just made. So we're going to go in there and make a V stitch. So that's 1 UK treble, 1 chain, 1 UK treble. Obviously that's a double in the US, and we're going to go straight in to the next one and do another. And now we're going to go into our top chain here, and we're going to do another stitch, another UK treble or US double. And that is how we're going to go on all the way along. Turn our work, 2 chain. Somebody asked me if it matters if you do the 2 chain before you turn, or if you turn your work and do them, if that matters at all. It really doesn't, but I find if I'll show you what I mean. Some people, like I did just now, do their 2 chain. They actually don't lose it though, they actually do the chain. and then they turn their work and it twists a little bit. So I like to, if I've finished my work here and I turn, then I usually turn my hook so it's facing the right way, and then I just do 2 chain and I get no twist. But that's just me. I'm just a bit of a perfectionist, I suppose. So now I'm just going to V-stitch where I have a V-stitch. So that's 2. So this now becomes quite simple until you get to the end. So normally speaking, when we do mile a minute, it's sets of 3, but I'm doing it with V-stitches. Just like that. And now we keep going, just turning our work and doing our 2 V's and our 2 posts either end, 2 chain, 1 UK treble or 1 US double crochet, making our ends. So we're going to carry on like that until we have, not including these 2 ends, obviously we haven't done the other end yet, but we will have 62. So what I recommend is every time you've done 10, just to pop in a stitch marker. So we'll go ahead and we'll do some more, just to make sure everyone knows what they're doing. We're V-stitching in our V-stitches. It's really warm in here today. It's pouring with rain, so that's why the yarn is sticking to me just a little bit. I'm sorry if you can hear a little clicking, it's my bracelet. So now we're going to do our last stitch in the top chain. You'll probably hear the rain now, it's getting harder. So that's how it looks. And we're just going to keep going. And when we want to count 10, we just simply count from this one here. So we'll count up our 10 and then put a stitch marker in this one here. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to get to 10 and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so now I've done a fair few. So this one's in the first one, and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've done 11. So I'm going to put a stitch marker in there. So I'm only doing that because I'm going to do 62 of them, and rather than keep counting them all the time, you can just go 10, 20, 30. So you can actually keep tabs on however many you've done. So now all you need to do is keep going until you have 62, or that's if you want to make a blanket my size. I'll just get a tape measure and I will measure mine, and I'll show you how many mine will measure up to, but you can make it longer or shorter according. So I'll just get a tape, because I didn't actually measure it until I thought of it just now, and see how much mine measures. Okay, so I used my measure tape, and mine's 46 inches by 30 because I wanted it to be a fairly large blanket, but you can adjust that. So the longer you want it, you just make a few more. You can actually judge it just by looking at the length of your strip and then add in a good, say, couple of inches maybe on top of that either side will give you a rough estimate. So you don't have to do the 62 and make it identical to mine. You can make it smaller to go into a car for a car seat, or you can make it much larger and have it for a king size bed. It's up to you what you want to do. So, and likewise with the DK one, obviously that will come up an awful lot smaller in terms of the V's. So you might need, whereas you've got 62, you may need 82 when you're doing, and or maybe a few more or less depending on what you want to make. It's just a case of judging it with your eye. But I will show you how to do our mile a minute strips, and then how to do the edging around them, and then how to join them. But really, it's your blanket. You can make it however you want. So I'm going to carry on doing my my mile a minute segments, and just until I've got the length. So I'm not going to make mine 62 long to show you on this tutorial, because I'm not going to make another blanket, but I just want to show you how to do it. But you can assume that it will be 62 long. I'll just show you with a swatch. It'd be different if I wanted to make another blanket. I've already done one, so we just keep turning and carrying on, making our sides and our V's. It does grow very, very quickly. Hence the name, mile a minute. I'm having trouble keeping my yarn at bay today. I don't know if you've noticed. It's trying to go underneath me. I pulled my stitches out. Okay, so I'm going to pause it and I'll come back to you when I've got a decent enough size to show you the next step, but you will have 62. Okay, so I've made a swatch. Don't forget, yours will be 62, not including the two ends. Now, this is how we're going to do our last end. So I put a stitch marker in the very last post, both sides, because this is the confusing end, and you will thank yourself for doing this. Okay, so I'll put my hook back in my yarn, rather, not my yarn back in my hook. And now we're going to make the end. Now this is slightly different to the last end because we do not have a centre stitch. We have this centre gap, but our centre stitches are these two from our two posts of our V's. So I'm going to do my first stitch in there. So I'm just going to, no chain, just go straight in with a UK treble or a US double. Whoops, nearly went all the way through. And then I'm going to chain one. So that, I know it's a bit of a gap there, but it does close up. But that line along here and this stitch will signify our two stitches. I'm sorry, I'm just about to get a parcel, so I just need to pause it for 1 second. I'm sorry about that. I just had my camera just malfunctioned on me, so I'm hoping that everything's there, and I'm hoping that that did actually pause. If not, I'm going to have to try and edit it out, which will be a test of my skills. So because I got interrupted, I'll show you that again. I don't want anything to make it complicated. Okay, so back to where we were. These two are our center stitch instead of that one big stitch. So in that one, which is the top of, there's our first V, so it's the top of this, you can see there are two dead center. I'm going to go into that stitch and I'm going to do a UK treble or a US double crochet in that stitch and then do one chain. So this along here and this one we've just made will be our two. So I'm going to, in that same stitch, I'm going to go in and do my two. And then one chain. But my next two I'm going to do in this one here, because it make it nice and center then. And then I'm going to do my one chain, and to make it the same as this side, I'm going to do my one stitch in there and join it to my top of my chains here with a slip stitch, and that is the end. So I'm just going to do a chain and cinch it down, cut my yarn and pull it through. So this end has the same stitches but just slightly different here. And if you're not, as I say, not keen on this big hole, then all you need to do is with a darning needle go through this whole circle and pull it tighter, and you can make it smaller. So now the reason I've got these in here is because on this end It's very difficult to figure out, because this is quite fat, very difficult to figure out if that's actually a space or not. So these are the spaces that you want to go in. Now I'm not going to start this side because I've got this tail and I only want to create one tail at a time. Mind you, I've got this tail this side. Doesn't really matter, does it? I'll use this, go in this one first. I will go over this one first, doesn't matter. So I'm going to take out my stitch marker. First of all, I'm going to get my white, or whichever colour you're edging with. I'm just going to move away this lilac colour. For our first one, we are going to just go all the way around because we're going to join as we go. And so this first one, I'm just going to do a complete all the way around. So I'm going to take out this stitch marker, set it aside, and I'm going to just join my yarn here. Now you can join your yarn however you want. Some people like to do like a little knot. I just do a chain and cinch it down. Sometimes I'll do just make my very first chain. Got to get that other tail out of the way, which is why I didn't really want to do one with two tails. Do my first stitch with my working yarn and my other. So I'm going to do two chain. That one doesn't count because it's actually there. So there's my second chain. It's actually my join. So there's my two chain, that's my join. And now I'm going to just do another stitch, a UK treble or a US double crochet alongside it. No chain. And I'm just going to drop that tail out the way. As I say, I would normally work them in, but it'll get confusing. So now we're going to go in each of our side segments and we're going to just do two UK trebles or US double crochets. So basically these will become along the side a modern V-stitch. So this mile a minute consists of traditional V-stitches and modern V-stitches. So the traditional V-stitch has a chain between and the modern V-stitch doesn't, because we go in between it, and by going in between it we create a space and it makes it slightly less open, but nevertheless very nice. I like it. So that's what we're going to do all the way along until we get to the end. Just very simple. It is actually a very simple thing. It's just a little confusing at the ends. So I don't think there's anything that a beginner couldn't tackle, but it just helps to know crochet, I think, when it becomes a little bit intricate and confusing. But it's certainly not difficult stitches. So we're just going in every single one of our side posts all the way along, and that's what it's looking like. You can just see them quite clearly there. So I'm going to pause it and I'm going to go all the way along, and I will pick up with you when I get to the end here. No malfunction that time, thank goodness. So now I'm at the end. I'm going to take out my stitch marker, my last stitch, and I know that that is my very last one along this side. So I'm going to do my two in there, and now all I'm left with excuse me, are the three spaces from my sets of four at the end. So this one is going to become a corner. So what I'm going to do is go back to traditional V-stitch, so that's one UK treble or US double, one chain, then another, one chain, then another, one chain, and then another. So what we get are three spaces in our corner. Then we're going to jump to this one here, and we're going to do a traditional V-stitch, which is one stitch, one chain, one stitch. Now, as I said, this particular one we're going to go all the way around. So this one here is another corner because we are turning this around. So this is another corner. So we're going to do 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch. So we've got 2 gaps. Now be careful, sometimes it is very simple to just do 2, thinking you've done your 3, but what you actually want is 3 spaces, not 3 posts. So there we are, we've completely turned the corner. We're back to this one. I'm going to take out our stitch marker. We know that this is our first kind of real stitch. And if you're a little confused when you get there, all you have to do is look, and it is dead opposite the other one. So it should match up nicely. So that's what we're going to do then. We're going to go all the way along until we get to this end. Just going in every one of our posts all the way along, doing 2 stitches again, back to the modern V-stitch. So I'll pause it and I'll pick up with you when I get to the other end. But that's how our top looks now. You can see it's just nice corners. Okay, so I'm going to pause it and I'll catch up with you when I get just before this next stitch marker. Okay, so I'm all the way to the end. I'm going to take out this stitch marker where we need to go into and put my last 2 in there, and we're just left with the end. Okay, so if we look at it, then we'll see there's our center hole and there's our 2 sides. So this next one is the corner, and we're going to do exactly the same as before. So that's 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, and then our last one. So we should have 3 spaces, and then 1 in the end, which will flatten out our end, and then our corner in the next one, exactly the same as before. So that's my second space, and there's the third. So now all we have to do is remove that out the back. If you wanted to sew those in as you go, then by all means do, but I recently had a bit of a problem where I had to undo something and I'd sewn my ends in and couldn't really find them. So now all I'm going to do is slip stitch into the top of the beginning chains and end off. I'm going to cut my yarn, and to end off, all I do is a chain, cinch it right down and pull it through. So this is what it looks like. You've got your nice corners each end, and then we bring in a new one. So you do want to try and make sure that you start with the same ends. It's a bit difficult. It doesn't matter if you're going to sew them though. That's, you know, if you're going to do that, that's fine. So I did remember how to do that. Now I've like forgotten it again. So I think it's starting with this end. Doesn't really matter if you're going to do that anyway. So we're going to join our yarn exactly the same as we did before. We're going to start it by taking out this first stitch marker and going in that space. So and this is our corner and this is our end. So we're going to go in here and just join our yarn. I'll do it the same way. Drop my tail. There we go, and we're going to do one more in there like that and go all the way along again, doing 2 in each of our posts. all the way along until we get to the end. So I'm going to pause it and I'll catch up with you when I get to this stitch marker, because we do something different this time round. So I'll just pause it and I'll meet you when we get there. Okay, so we're at the end. Just pull out some yarn. Okay, so our stitch marker means our last 2 stitches right on the floor. Okay, now we're going to do our first, there's our middle, so there's our first corner, and we're going to do that as normal. So that's our 1 stitch. It just annoyingly falls off. 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain. It fell off altogether. It's because it's really hot, you know. Now the rain has stopped and it's brilliant sunshine out there. You wouldn't have ever thought it, but we had a real storm. It's because I'm trying to do this on camera, I'm losing my stitches. So we've done our first corner the same as before. We're going to do our end the same as before. And then it gets a little different. So we're going to do the first part of our next corner. And then we're going to bring in our other piece. So we want to try and get these the same. So this side is the one we're working on. So lay at the side of it, and let's move that out of the way. We'll lay it at the side of it so you can see both. Now you've got your corner here match up with your corner there. So what we're going to do is, we've done our first one, we're going to go dead center into the middle of our V's. See, we're going to go in there, and then we're just going to yarn over and bring that through, and then we're going to complete our chain. So that's our chain, and now we're going to, I don't hold my hook and yarn like this, so it's really strange for me. We're now going to do our next stitch. I'm only doing it like this because I need to show you, and it's awkward. See what I mean? I wouldn't be able to do it. So now that's our middle section. So now we're going to go in, hold them side by side, and you can see we've gone into our middle one. So now we're going to go into this one, and we're going to bring it through. I'm going to hold it properly and complete our chain, and then we're going to do one more in that same space, and we've completed the corner. Now that does look tricky, which is the only reason I say it is a little bit tricky for a beginner. So we've completed our corner, but we've joined the middle section and this one. So now this looks a bit awkward because of it's the work and the first chain. So we rely on the fact that this is here to tell us where we go next. So I'm going to do the first part of my V-stitch in there. So I'll just hold it like this, and you can see splitting the yarn. And then I'm going to go in between our next V on this side. So I'm going to go straight between the 2 stitches, and I'm going to yarn over and just pull it through. It doesn't matter how you do it. And then complete my chain and do the second part of my V-stitch in there, just as normal. See, normally speaking, I don't lay them flat, but it's just trying to show you. So that's what we're doing. We're joining as we go now. So I'm going to go in my next segment, my next post along the edge. I'm going to start my V-stitch. So I'm going to do one stitch, and then I'm going to go in between my next one, which is here. I'm going to put my hook in, and I'm going to do my yarn over like that, bring it through, complete my chain, and now I'm going to complete my V-stitch, and we're going to do that all the way along. It's easier when you're holding it rather than laying it flat. But if you need to, by all means lay it flat. But that's what it's looking like. We've joined at the centre here, and we're just going to go all the way down. So I'm going to start my next V in the next post, complete it by going in to the next one. You can see where you've been. This is the next one. I'm going to insert my hook in there and yarn over and bring it through. You get fast at this, and then complete your chain, then complete your V-stitch. It does look hard, but it looks hard when you're holding it this way. When you're holding it normally, it's not. You just carry on as normal. But I've got this whole apparatus in the way of me holding it normally. So you go in between the V's, yarn over, pull it through, complete your chain, complete your V. So just do that all the way along, and I'll meet up with you at the end. I'm just going to make my stitch bigger, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is how it's working up, joining them nicely. It does pull open a little bit after a while. It looks tight at first, but I like to join as I go. The very first time I ever did a mile a minute, I sewed it. I did an invisible sew all the way down. Took me forever. It's a real long thing. It was a massive blanket. So I soon got fed up with doing that. So right, start the next V in the post. And then in between our next one on the other side, that's the one we've been into, just go in there, yarn over, bring it up, and then complete the chain, complete the V. Into the next one. Find the next stitch, pop it in, yarn over and pull it up, complete the chain and complete the V. So I'm going to go all the way along. If you need to see that again, then by all means just rewind it. I'll meet up with you when we get to the end. Okay, so I'm all the way to my end. So that's kind of come out now. And we're going to carry on, do my last post in there. And then I'll show you how we join again when we get to the corner. Now I've got lots of ends to negotiate here, which are a bit annoying. Don't want to carry them through and start using them. Right, so now we're at the end again. So we're going to start our corner. Not getting the end caught up in. So we've made our first post of our corner, and we're just going to insert. There's our 3. You see it? 1, 2, 3. We're going to insert into this one, and we're going to yarn over and pull that through, complete our chain, and do our second post of the corner. We're going to go into the middle one. We're going to yarn over and pull that through, complete our chain, do our second post of the corner. So we've now joined to the first one and to the middle one. We're going to chain 1 and complete our corner. That one doesn't get attached. And then we're just going to go in the middle one as usual with our V-stitch. And in the next one we just do a complete corner. Let's move that tail behind, hopefully keep out of the way. So it's a stitch, a chain, a stitch, a chain, and a stitch, and a chain, and a last stitch. End is a little pesty, isn't it? So now all we do is slip stitch into our top chain. You don't have to get it into the exact part and snip off our yarn, make a chain, cinch it down and pull it through. So now we've joined 2 segments together. So all we do is make our strips and do this exactly the same with each one. So the length of your strips is your personal preference, and the width can be determined by however many of these strips you make. So for my blanket, I wanted to make 9, but I was playing a little bit of yarn chicken and lost. So I have 8 across, but obviously you just make it as wide as you want to. You can add or take away depending on what you want to do. So that's how you make the blanket itself. So I'm going to give you a timestamp in the description box of this point here, and from this point on will be the border. So it is 42.24 and then you'll start your border. Right, so here's our border, and I'm going to show you how I made this border. It's nice and simple, but I'm going to show you on this swatch, and this swatch is made, as I say, with DK weight yarn, and it's just any kind of, I just used any DK. I got this from Aldi in one of their yarn events, and this white was just one that I picked up in the local store. So what I did, I made sure I joined at a corner. So just pull out some yarn. And obviously, you know, if you've made this with 4 weight yarn, you do exactly the same. So it makes no difference. So I'm just going to join in this corner here and go into my center one. Okay, and join my yarn. So you can join it however you wish to. Don't, you know, anyway. So I'm going to do a 1 chain, and I've cinched it down. That's what I class that as my 1 chain and cinch it down. So I'm going to do a UK half treble, which is a half double. Now don't worry that the first one has 1 extra stitch, but if you join your yarn a different way, it doesn't matter, you won't have it. So you just yarn over, go into that middle V, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through all of them. And I'm going to work over this tail for once, so I'm going to do 1 more, yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull up, that's 3, yarn over, pull through all 3. So now I'm going to do that all the way along. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into the middle of that V and do 1 stitch. Now I'm going to go in the post. Don't worry about the tail. And I'm going to go into the next post and then in the center of the V, and then in the posts. Just going to do that all the way to the end. And when I get here, this is one of the joins. So I make sure that I go in the post, and then I can't get one right in the center, so I go into this V of the corner, into the next one, and then into the post. Now sometimes it does go like this, but it soon evens out. So just carry on all the way along, and I will meet up with you when I get to the corner. So it's just 1 in between and 1 in the posts, and I'll catch up with you at the corner. Okay, so we're at the corner, so I'm going to do 1 in between that first V, 1 in the post, and then in this middle one, because I need to turn the corner, I'm going to do 3 stitches. Need to pull out some yarn. So I've done my 2 and I've done 3. Now you'll notice in the first one that I just did 2, and that's because I wanted to do half of the corner And when I get back round, I'll complete that and I will finish dead center of the corner to start my next round. So I'm going to just go, if you can see, if you went in there now, it might be a little bit bunched up. So I'm going to just go into that one, and then that will keep this the distance nicely. But you can see if that, when you get to those joins, if you feel that the distance there is too great, then by all means, you know, you can go into one of the stitches if you can. But likewise there, I felt like if I'd have gone into this post, then there would have been too many stitches and it would pucker on the next rounds. So it's just kind of playing it by ear really. Just make sure you pick up enough stitches around to give it a nice even border. So now we're going to go into the posts and then back into the V's, just as we did before. Now these ones along this side, these are the ones with no chain. So by going in between them, you're parting them just a little bit. So I'm going to carry on then. And now you know how to do the corner. I will meet you once I get back to the start and show you how we finish that corner. Incidentally, I just wanted to let you know that because there's no center chain, all I do is go into the V, into the next post, into the V, and then I need to pull out my yarn again, and then into the next post. So I've already gone into that bit. There we go. So that keeps it the tension right, because we've lost that center chain. We don't want too many stitches, as I said before. So it's rather than both posts, we are just doing in the center, into the next post, into the center, into the next post. Just didn't think I made that clear. So going to carry on and I'll catch up with you when we get to the start. So bearing in mind, when you go around this part, you've got the chain, and when you go along this other edge, you won't have. Okay, so I'm right the way back round. There's my first two. So I'm going to complete that by doing my third and then slip stitch into my first one. And now I am right in the center of that corner. So I'm going to chain one, just cinch it down. So I don't like to confuse it with a stitch. And I'm going to do two again, so that when I come back round, I'll complete that corner and be right in the center. Now I'm just going to do one, exactly the same, one UK half treble, which is a half double in the US, in every single stitch all the way around. So I'm going to, that will be my second row, exactly the same. But when you get to the corner this time, it will be different, because you'll just have your 3 stitches and you'll do your 3 in the center one. But it's simpler now. You just go in every single stitch that you've created all the way around. And so I'm going to pause it and I'll catch up with you when I get to the first corner and show you what to do then. Okay, so I'm almost there at the corner, and you can see where you want to put your corner. So you're just going to do my 3 stitches in that corner stitch and just carry on all the way around, doing 1 in every stitch until the next corner. So you just repeat that. So you're making your corner where you've got your corner. It just follows on nicely. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around and I'll catch up with you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I'm almost back, and one more to do. One more to complete that corner. Slip stitch into the middle, and I'm right in the center. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change colour. The reason being, for one thing, I have I'm running low on this white, and I want to be able to complete the whole border. Plus I want to see what it would look like with the two colours that I've used. So I'm going to bring in this colour, which I do have a lot of. So I'm going to do these next 2 rows in this colour and then bring back the white. And just need to pull out some yarn. So I'm going to finish that stitch with the new colour. So I'm going to insert and bring in the new colour and continue in that new colour. So because I'm joining the colour, I'm just going to put a little knot in this. Not a massive one, I'm just going to do it with like a single knot, and then I'll work those ends in. So now I'm going to work in this colour. I'm going to do my corner just the same as I have here. So I'm going to start with just this section, and then when I come back I will finish it. So I'm going to do 3 chain, so that's 2 for my post, 1 for a chain, and then I'm going to do another one in the same stitch. So that is half of the corner. When I come back I'll finish that corner off. So now I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and in the next one I'm going to do 2 UK trebles or US double crochets, just 2 together in the same stitch. And I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and then do 2 in the next one. Chain 1, skip 1, and do 2 in the next one. And I'm going to do that all the way along. Sorry, I didn't know if I went off camera there. If I did, I will show you again. So as you can see, we've got half a corner, and then we've got 1 chain, skip 1, then 2 in the next, skip 1, 1 chain, 2 in the next, 1 chain, skip 1, 2 in the next. So I need to do my chain, skip 1, and 2 in the next. I'm going to do that all the way along until we get to the next corner. But I just wanted to show you that what I said about this edge, it was going kind of like this, and it's still a little bit, but as you can see it's much straighter. We can barely see it now. In fact, I can't exactly see it now, but on the next rounds that will disappear completely. So I just wanted to show you that. Now I'm going to carry on doing that. 1 chain, skip 1, and 2 in the next stitch all the way to the corner, and then I'll come back to you. I'll pause the video now and I'll come back to you and show you what we do at the corner. Okay, so we're at the next corner and it matches up nicely. Now if it didn't, this is a very forgiving thing where you could make up that stitch, but it does match up quite nicely. So now I'm just going to do the corner exactly the same way as I did here. So that's just obviously 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, take it all with you, 1 chain, 1 stitch. So we've got our 2 spaces. Be careful to make the 3rd. Just get around that corner, 1 chain, skip 1, 2 in the next. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I will pause the video and catch up with you when I get back to the start. Now as you can see, it does kind of mean there's a bit too many stitches, but it's fine. On the next round we're just going to go in these spaces. And also, if you wanted to, this just gives you a rough idea. If you wanted to maybe do another round of this UK half treble or US half double, it looks quite nice with just a plain border. If you didn't want anything kind of fancy, you could just do that. But I'm gonna pause it then, go all the way round, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to here and need to finish the corner. Okay, so we're now all the way around and we're going to complete this corner. So ignoring that tail, just going to go straight in there, and I'm going to do 1 UK treble or US double, 1 chain and another, and then to join it, instead of doing a chain, I'm going to do a UK double crochet, which is a single crochet in the US. So I'm just going to go into that stitch. Well, it doesn't matter if you go into the which loops. Yarn over and pull up a loop, so you have 2. Yarn over and pull through both. So we have 1, 2, 3 spaces. So now we're going to work in this center space. So I always like to go into that, yarn over and pull up a loop and pull it through, so slip stitch into it, which gets me into that center. So this is where you decide whether you want to do 1 row of these pairs or whether you want to do 2 rows. So on my blanket I chose 2 rows, but this will look a little different in a different color. But you've got your rows at the bottom here, do 1 row and then your rows of UK half treble, US half doubles above them. So I'm going to carry on and do what I did before. So I'm going to chain 3, because that's 2 for a stitch, 1 for a space, and I'm going to go back into that center and do another UK treble or US double crochet. So that's half a corner. And now I'm going to treat this exactly as these and go in between with just 2 stitches, no chains this time, in between there. So you can this time though do 1 chain and go, sorry, gone in the wrong bit, haven't I don't want to chain at all. It's only the corner that it makes a difference. We're going to go in between them. We're not going to go into the V's. We're going to go in between the V's where we've done our chain space. And we're going to do 2 there. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to go in between them again. So it's the kind of opposite of a V stitch. We're going between them and just doing our pairs. A chain and go in between with another pair. So kind of the opposite of what we were doing earlier when we were making V's. Now we're just doing kind of blocks with a chain in between. I'll split the yarn there. And we're going to do that all the way around. And then when we get to the corner, we're going to do the same. So we're going to do 2 in there, our corner, and 2 in there. If you find that that bunches up too much, then just by all means do 1 stitch in these 2 at the side. It depends on your tension and all sorts of things, but this is how it kind of looks. It looks okay to me here, but if you felt like that was too many stitches, then I suppose you see, the deciding factor will be when you've got your corner in. It might make it too bulky, but you can do either at the corner. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to do my corner in the corner, and either 1 stitch here or 2 stitches in there, depending, because we don't want it to look overcrowded. And then we'll carry on and going in between each one, doing our corners the same as this, but with 1 or 2 stitches in these segments here. I'm going to do 1 more round with this colour, and I'll come back to you and we'll get on with the white. Okay, so I'm nearly back and playing yarn chicken. That's all I have left. So that's pretty incredible. I did have another ball, but I didn't really want to start on it. So I found the corners, for me, for my tension, were better just doing 1 stitch either side of my corner. This one has 2, but I'll work around it. It doesn't really matter too much. So now I'm going to finish this corner by going into the same space, doing my stitch, my chain, my stitch. And this time I'm going to change colour again. So I'm going to insert and bring back the white. So that's all I had left. That's amazing. So bringing in the white. I was going to pull out some yarn before I start. Okay, so I'm going to just bring that in and just go through. It doesn't really matter because we're now going to start doing our UK trebles again. So I'm going to go into that stitch and pull up and then do my slip stitch, which not going to be that easy because I didn't tie this that time, so just pull it tight. So I'm going to just work over these tails now, and I'm going to do my chain and cinch it down. Don't want it to get confused with the stitch, and I'm going to do 2 UK half trebles or US half doubles in that space of the corner. So we're back to that again, and now we're going to just do 2 more rows. And this time, until we get to where we have space between, we're just going to go into our stitch. So I'm going to ignore this post here because I did do 2 where I should have done 1. I think if it depends on your tension. If you're not, I'm quite tight, I guess, with my tension. I don't know. So now I'm going to go in every stitch until I get to my spaces, which is round about here. Just go in. Okay, so now I'm only going to do 2 in between each of my pairs. That will get our stitch count right. So just going to tuck them behind there, and it will pull them apart like it did down here. There's 1 and 2, 1, 2, and we're going to do that all the way along. Now if you find it does start to pull, then just do 1 in the middle, but on mine it didn't, and I was fine. But I guess it just depends on how tight it is that you've been working. On the next round it does actually even out, but it pulls those apart nicely. So I'm just going to do 2 in between each one. When I get to the corner, I'm just going to do 3 in the middle, just like we did on our first 2 rounds of the border. It's nice and simple. We're back to the nice simple rounds. So I'm going to pause it then, and I'll catch up with you when I get to my first corner. Okay, so we're right up to the corner, so I'm going to go in the post. I'm going to do my 3 in the corner, and then I'm going to go straight into this one, because if I go into the post at that point, then it would pucker, there'd be too much. So I'm just going to go into that one and then into the next stitch. I just usually judge it, and if the distance looks too far, I'd go into that post, but then the corner sits nicely. So I'm just going to go all the way around, and once I get back to the start, I'll catch up with you there. I'll pause it now. So really just use your judgment along there. If you find that it looks like you need that stitch, put it in. If it looks too close and it looks like there'd be too many stitches, then don't. Because really we've made gaps because we've just been going in between each stitch anyway, each set of stitches. So I'm going to meet you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I've made it all the way back. I'm going to go into that stitch there because there's a gap that's quite large. Go into the last, make my last stitch of that corner, slip stitch into the middle, again into the next stitch, so that brings you back into the center. So this next row I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the first 2 rows there. So I'm going to make sure I do 3 in the center of the corners, 1 stitch in every stitch around, but 3 in each corner. So it's exactly the same repeat as these rows down here. So I'm going to pause the video because you've seen that already. You don't really need to see that, and I will catch up with you when I do when I've finished, get back to this point of this next round. Okay, so I'm all the way back. Now the more observant of you might have seen that I did the wrong stitch back there. I did notice, and I took it out, frogged it back. So I did my last one in the corner, slip stitch into the middle, and then I just need to end off. Left my scissors out of reach. So I'm just going to cut that nice big tail for working the end in. Now if you look, that's, I think, a nice enough border, but you could, if you wanted to, do kind of an ornate sort of scalloped edge or a little filigree edge to that. But if you think that all of that there is a border, it's quite a big border anyway, that's what it looks like with 2 colours in the border. And refresh your memory, is that back to front? It is. This is what it looks like with just 1 colour in the border. So this one, as I said before, there are 8 strips which are edged. You can make 9. And this one is made with DK. That's obviously 4 weight, the other one. Now this is what it looks like with the DK. Now I used 22 length for these strips, and it's made a nice little size for perhaps a blanket for my granddaughter's dolls. So that's what I'll do. I'll sew these ends in and then I will give that to her. I quite like it with the 2 colours, but I like it equally with just the 1 colour. So I'm not going to bother doing a fancy edge. That's just all finished for me. So thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.